Not sure how I'm going to go here. Originally wanted to talk about literacy as a citizen, as a business person. And I've been watching the news and made a couple of videos earlier. And power hates a vacuum. And the United States came to the position it is now after two world wars, mostly centered between European powers, and we came in one and in two as the deciding factor. Uh, Countries, civilizations vie for primacy, and Rome became Rome not only because they were highly disciplined and determined and believed in who they were, but the whole Mediterranean basin had kind of fallen down. After Alexander the Great had destroyed the Persian Empire, and the Persian Empire fell because it had gotten soft and didn't really totally believe in itself, and it fell apart under the onslaught of the Macedonians, who very much believed in who they were, and they were highly organized. And even though they were outnumbered by the Persians and so forth, they ended up winning that. But then after Alexander's death, all the generals fell to fighting among one another and created a vacuum that eventually Rome filled. And Rome filled that very well until their own republic could not respond to the growth and everything that he created in their elite, much like the elite followed Alexander, and also the elite of the Persians, got soft and corrupt. And so Augustus, after several civil wars, instituted the empire, but disguised it as a republic, and kept that going fairly well for about 400 years. And then, of course, that collapsed, not right away, but it collapsed, and it fell. The western part fell pretty rapidly under the onslaught of the quote-unquote barbarians who really wanted to be Romans. And then you had the Roman Empire, Eastern Empire, the Byzantine Empire, and it rolled along fairly well for almost another 1,000 years. And it finally collapsed also for much the same reasons, the corruption and the greed and so forth. And the Islamic onslaught was part of that. And they picked up bits and pieces of what was left and ran with it fairly well for a couple of hundred years. And then they fell into religious intolerance, and they're pretty much that way today. But Islam is built around basically a warrior spirit, and that sustains it, and it'll go down for a while and then rise back up. And you're seeing the rise back up going on right now. Western Europe under Christianity rose up and filled the vacuum, feudalism, and so forth and so on. Then the nation states, and then for the last 500 years, it's been fairly dominant. Now you've got an elite that's corrupt and this and that and so forth, and you have Islam paired with China, and they're on the rise, and we're basically have fallen under the sway of people who think kumbaya, that if we're super nice and everybody gets along, and we have these very rich people who think they'll stay that way if they just are nice to everybody and so forth. And they've been eating away at our warrior ethos for quite a while now and have been successful, and you see the results of that. I think I quoted another deal that at one time one of Napoleon's generals, talking about the British cavalry, said they are the best in Europe. but the worst led. And the United States and United States and England still, to a certain extent, have the best troops, but the worst led. Although I think maybe the English are still better. Our generals, I understand this Milley guy, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was a pretty good battalion commander at one point. But there's the old Peter principle where you go to your level of incompetence, and he's kind of there. And that seems to happen a lot now. We have pretty good, but platoon, company level, battalion level, and then the suck-ups get in and so forth. But now you have the academics from probably the worst academic area in the world now, the Ivy League. They don't teach critical thinking. They have critical race theory, but they don't teach critical thinking anymore. And that's a shame, because that was a wonderful place with wonderful tradition. So this whole rant is built around there's a vacuum in the world, which at one time the United States and the Soviet Union were vying to fill that vacuum. We did, and we've been very bad at it since the Soviet Union fell. And Russia, who we outclass in every way, is beginning to fill that. But so is China, and and I don't know where that's all going to go, because ultimately the process is you fill the vacuum, you take over, and then the corruption, the greed. And China's full of that right now, so is Russia. So we'll see where it all goes. But ultimately, the people who are disciplined, who believe in what they are and who they are the ones who come out on top. That's historically, if you bother to take the time to read it, that's what happens, and we need to understand that. You have a good day.